For many years now, Russ and Craig have had many wide-ranging conversations with folks from all over the gaming world. This is one of those conversations.
D6G, the Lost Chapter.
Russ, can you give me a napkin? I think I just spilled some of my mocha iced coffee.
Again, the mocha doesn't come out of the pants, dude. It just,
I know.
once it's in.
Oh, look, it's Colen from Lone Wolf.
Colen, how are you, sir?
I heard there was donuts here.
There are donuts here. Now, what is your favorite donut?
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yes, being from Scotland, is there a particular donut that is preferred?
I don't think there are any traditionally Scottish donuts, but nevertheless, my favorite has always been the unadorned donut with jam inside.
The unadorned jam donut.
No, I prefer the unadorned donut with jam inside. That's what.
Yes, that is an awesome. That is a perfect description.
Eloquently named donut I have ever heard.
It is indeed the unadorned. I want to see that on Dunkin' Donuts next advertisement. We now serve
I didn't see
unadorned.
the menu here, but
that'd be awesome. Do you have a favorite jam?
Strawberry.
Strawberry unadorned.
The
strawberry
unadorned donut with strawberry jam inside.
All right. Well, Craig will pick you one of those up. We're gonna, Colin, since we got you here, and it's good to have an unadorned jam-filled donut because we're all recovering from GenCon now. Some of us as observers, and some of us as the dedicated folks in the booth working around the clock, i.e., you, Colin, making it a fun experience for all of us walking around checking out all the new hotness. And we thought it'd be kind of cool. The Lost Chapters here, we like to do topical things like Gen Con, but also we want to do things that are sort of timeless. And it might be kind of fun, as we went around Gen Con and we tried to experience the new hotness that is in the vendor hall. The big thing is people are trying to convey information to you in a very short period of time about whatever it is they're selling. Usually at Gen Con, it's a game. And so it's demos, and they're doing different types of demos. It'd be kind of fun to talk about kinds of demos and the techniques used in demos, and it can be games or software or anything else that people are trying to sell at a place like Gen Con, and what works for us, what we like to see, what we don't like to see, what works for us, what doesn't work, and just chat for that for a little bit and see where we end up. How does that sound? Good?
That sounds great.
All right, great. Okay, good. So let's start. I thought we'd start off by talking about maybe just the general types of demos that we've seen, and then we can get into some specific examples from this year's 2013 Gen Con.
Lessons. Those of you who are listening who actually run demos or have companies that have demos, this could be a tutorial almost.
Now, yes, and I've done,
we have done our fair share.
We've done our fair share of gaming demos. Also, being in the software industry, I've actually done software demos at conventions, and of course, Colin, being a software company in the gaming industry, has done gaming software demos at conventions. So we have some experience. As a teacher,
I do demos every day.
Exactly. So we have plenty of experience here to share with you, and then our likes and don't likes. So here we go. So in the gaming world, there's really several different types of gaming demos. First of all, there's the sort of the classic short game session, right? We have a timed or very shortly run demo, and usually it's either with reduced sets of rules, right, or the full sets of rules, but just a very limited scope of gameplay, like a very simple scenario, or just you have play 2 turns and see what you think, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and that usually also depends on the complexity of the game being demoed as well.
Now the other kind, and we'll go through the examples in a minute here. And Colin, jump in where you feel proper. When you're not eating some jam-filled donut there. Unadorned jam-filled.
Somebody say unencumbered
or unencumbered.
I think the coffee is really good too. I'm not surprised.
I think to be unencumbered, you need to wear a kilt, though. I've heard that's a rumor. Is that true? I don't know. Anyway, so moving right along. So the other kind of demo, and these I'm kind of starting to like these more. I have to admit, and this may be because I now come to these things as sort of a media person in a way, and that I'm trying to, when I go into a convention, it's like a pure gamer, and I just think, I'm just here to get the most I can about the games I'm most anticipating. I want the most I can get out of the demo. I want to sit down and, it's the new Battlelore version. I really want to sit down and see that played as much as I can before they kick me out of the chair, right? But other times when I'm trying to just cover lots of games, or maybe just see lots of games and I don't know if I'm going to like them or not, I want something shorter, something to is this game worth my time to get more? And one of the things I've started seeing more of is sort of a mechanics walkthrough and some highlights of the game. So you walk up to a person and say, hey, so what's your game like? And when I'm asking that, I don't really want a full demo. What I really want is just, hey, give me a high level. Is this pick up and deliver? Is it worker placement? Is it, is it a deep strategy game? Is it a mid-level game? Is it a party game? That kind of stuff. And so sometimes I want that kind of a thing. Right.
I think that's one of the big skills that you need if you're doing a lot of trade show stuff is recognizing when the person talking to you is interested at a cursory level, what you can do to kind of bring them deeper, or whether they're the kind of person, like you mentioned first, where you want all the details and they're happy to spend 45 minutes talking to you until they've wrung every last drop of information about the product out of you.
Oh, see, I can tell Colen is an experienced demo person. Yeah, the most important thing about a demo is knowing your audience.
That's right.
Right, you got to know what the person wants. Exactly right, Colen. It's a good observation. And again, there is that guy who's wringing his hands saying, I must know all there is to know about the new Firefly RPG. And I'm going, oh, Firefly RPG, what are the mechanics? What makes that different than any other sci-fi game? Kind of thing. All right, so also the other thing that works pretty well, and Craig and I have used this to good effect in the past, is a high-energy demo to engage the audience, not necessarily what you're trying to engage people actually playing the demo, but more importantly, or perhaps as important, you're also trying to engage people around the audience.
Right.
So you're trying to make the entire experience awesome, even for those watching, and you're actually seeing people going, I will never be able to wait in line long enough to play that game, but that is so cool, I will probably buy it or at least go hunt it down and find which stores are carrying it when it comes to my local area.
Our specialty.
Yes. It works really well, especially, and there are certain games. A good example of this, I said I wasn't going to do examples yet, but I'm going to cheat now. Probably one of the best examples at GenCon this year was Rampage. Colin, did you hear about the Rampage game?
I heard the name. That's kind of all that I heard about it.
See, it was well.
Buzz.
So it basically is the old video game where the monsters crush the city.
Oh, I had that. That was excellent.
Yes,
I love that game.
so they've made it's not out yet. They were demoing it though, and a special large size version of it was over at the booth. And they have, but it's a dexterity game also with giant wooden monsters, and then you build the buildings out of meeples. So the meeples go in the four corners, and you put a level of a building on top of their heads, and then you put four more corners. So you build skyscrapers that are held with meeples, and then what you actually do is you will actually flick and drop your monsters onto the buildings, knocking the meeples out, and then consume them. And you're trying to eat the most people, and to see it happen with full-grown adults and have the really good referee / person teaching the rules and yelling and screaming and saying, you ate more meeples, it was just fantastic. So that's the kind of game that really gets it going, and it became a pretty big talk of the con, I think. And I don't know, they only had one table of it, they only had one copy of the game, only 4 people could play at a time, but I think other people could watch it and see the wackiness that it really got a lot of engagement. Now, also, Craig, there's another kind, the full gaming session, right?
Yes, well, I don't know if that really fits in as a demo.
No, but it's a way to get you into a game, and I've done this before too. So these are the kind, at GenCon, typically what they do with these, right, is you have to sign up for these in advance.
Right.
So if you look at like Fantasy Flight does this, Gale Force 9 does it, many other companies do it, all the role-playing games do it, where you can go to their booth and get a short demo. Or at GenCon, typically you pay a couple bucks to get a ticket in advance at a table, and you go play a 2 or 3 or 4 hour session of the actual game, where you're sitting down, and theoretically, if it's done properly, a trained gaming professional will help guide your table through the rules and learn the game quickly and be able to play.
Yeah.
Right. And these work great. These are good for people who are going to the con, like the Firefly board game. Right. We knew it was coming out. We knew it was from Gale Force 9. So it's a company we know and like. It's a property we know and like. It's a game we're really, really excited about. I'm willing to take 2 hours of my time out of my con, put it aside, and say, yes, I want to experience this game as much as I possibly can.
Right.
So those are so you're coming in. Those are for the people who, as Colin mentioned earlier, are going to be coming in and saying, yeah, I want as much as I can get out of this. I want a full game session.
Yep.
Then you've got the other kind, which is what Colin more typically probably does, which is basically your product overviews and highlights, kind of like we talked about before. But the other thing that gets people excited, and this is kind of maybe stretching the definition of a demo, but how do you get me interested in right now? How do you engage me as a customer? And then typically the way they do this is with con bonuses or early access, right?
Yeah, it's more of a sub item.
Yeah, all right, very fine. So did I miss any kind of broad demos there, Colin? Is there anything specific to software we should slide in here for demo types?
So the big thing, which is kind of meta demoing, that I've noticed when we're doing stuff, and then when also just wandering around the conventional myself, is getting pulling somebody in for that demo. Mm-hmm. And because I'm sure everybody has the thing where you're walking through the hallway and you're kind of interested but not but not super interested in something, and the people at the different booths are trying to draw you in with stuff. And that's kind of a big thing from our perspective, especially since we're not. It's often not entirely obvious what our software does. Is how to get people to come into your booth and do the demo in the first place.
Right. That's a good point too, and I think dragging your friend. We've all had that. One of our friends who comes running up to us and says, "Oh, I found that you got to go check this out. I just saw this at this booth. It's amazing. Got to go see it." And that's also so you want to try to engage with people and try to find the sort of the alpha geeks of their group and get them excited about your stuff. Right. Right.
Yeah, there are a lot of big groups of people who do exactly the same thing. Where we'll give somebody a demo in 5 minutes, and they'll say, "Hey, this is great, but let me come back in a little bit with my friend."
Yeah.
And they bring their friend who is the GM or who is the person who knows board games or whatever, and to get that demo and who are the kind of the expert in that group.
Yeah.
Right.
So let's talk. So we've defined our methodologies used. So how about some examples from GenCon 2013 that we saw that were good examples and maybe not so good examples of how to get people excited about their games. And their demos. Who wants to start? Any volunteers?
I'll start.
Okay.
Because I think there's an overarching element to demos that really needs to be addressed, because I think a lot of game companies are in a rough spot. Because we're talking coverage employees, people that are working your booths, and I think a lot of these places just kind of like they grab everybody they can. They grab people from the warehouse. They grab friends off the street. They grab they just want bodies in their booths running their demos, and I think it bears some focus right now for us to say that if you're just filling your booth with folks you don't really know or who don't know your product, you're actually doing yourself more harm than good. I think if you have, if for instance, I don't want to name names to like as a specific case, but there were several, and I would say several of these companies were running like 5 or 6 tables in their booths, and I would go up multiple times, either doing a demo or trying to get a demo. The people were just chatting with each other. They weren't really focused on doing demos. And when they did, they were like, "Oh, yeah, I think it works this way. Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, yeah." And they were they're very flighty. They didn't know what they were doing. And they were not really engaging people. And so it really, at the very least, what it does is it doesn't help your product any. At the worst, what it does is put a bad taste in the people's mouths and give them enough time to kind of look at your product as it's being demoed with a negative cast to their mind, so that they're actually that may very well color their perception of the game. So I cannot stress strongly enough how important not only energy and excitement, but knowledge of the product is when you're doing these demos. These demos can't be done by your stoner friend who promised, burgers for the weekend and GenCon if they went with you to do this.
Right. Have you, Colen, do you have any experiences like that, or positive or negative ones when you were walking around the floor?
I was at one booth where they had a lot of, I guess, esoteric items, including a bunch of unusually shaped dice. And the chap that I asked about why is this an interesting shape, he was not very technically inclined.
Not very technically inclined. Excellent. So that goes back to Craig's point then, product knowledge, right? You need to know if you're going to work the booth, you do damage. I would rather wait in a little more line to get to the only two guys who know their product than be shuffled off to someone who doesn't know it, and now I'm wasting my time.
Right, and that's where I was going, and I derailed myself, which I so often do. You've got 5 tables full of mediocre demos. If you had 2 tables with really good demos, you're going to get more people watching.
Right.
Maybe not. Maybe not everybody's going to get a chance to demo it, but they're going to be watching a good demo.
Right, a high energy demo, people yelling fire phasers and all that stuff. You want the yell.
It's going to be way more beneficial to you than everybody who possibly wants to gets a demo, but they're half-assed and they're not fun.
Exactly right. So the demos need to be short and fun. Well, not even short, just need to be fun and engaging is really what it is.
Engaging, and they need to be, you need to play the game that you're buying.
Yeah, and it comes down to engagement in general, I think, right? Like Colen, what did you guys do at your booth? I noticed this quite a bit when we walked near it. Now, we're biased because you know us, so I assume you did this for everyone. But tell me, so when people come near the Lone Wolf booth, though, it was very open, and there were screens facing outward in many different angles. And when you walk up, you sort of immediately kind of came into the demos. How did you guys kind of manage that flow?
So the nice thing is that people either will typically come in groups to the booth, or they'll be we'll get a few people arriving at once, and we can kind of fold them into a demo. So the screens is something that we try to do just because we want big screens are cool. Big televisions are cool. There aren't that many of them at GenCon. I think there are more than there used to be, but it's still a rarity. So by just having big screens, people will stop and look and try and figure out what it is. Another big thing is if your booth looks full, if it looks busy, people are kind of automatically attracted because those people are interested in this. Should I be interested in this too?
Right.
So that's something that we and it's not helpful in a way because your booth is not that busy, and then you reach the critical threshold of you've got a bunch of people, and then suddenly everybody in the world descends all at once. So that's kind of interesting to manage as well.
Hard to orchestrate.
Yeah. And it's interesting, I think, booth engagement, which is kind of broadening the topic of demos here. But I'm going to go here, Craig. I'm just going. We're in Dunkin' Donuts. Who cares?
You're going there?
Wow. Yeah, I'm going there. So,
go there.
Well, because there were two examples, and I'm going to name names here. I'm not going to pick on anyone, but two of the booths, in particular, Privateer Press and Fantasy Flight Games, both were mobbed, right? Mobbed booths. And so in the beginning, both of them had set up, Privateer did this last year, Fantasy Flight did it this year, where you could not even get into the booth until you waited in line. So they had the lines, and you had to wait to get in. So it was both the case in Privateer and Fantasy Flight. Now, later throughout the weekend, Privateer, when it slowed down a little bit, you were able to walk in and out of their store at any time. But Fantasy Flight had a thing going on the whole time where you had to wait in line to get inside the booth. You couldn't look at anything until you got in the booth.
And not like it.
And it was tough because it was hard to become engaged. You're like, okay, I'm going to wait in this line for an hour now to get new discovery. Now, Fantasy Flight did have demo tables outside also, but to go in and look at things, what Privateer did was, and I get why they had to do this, right? They got tons of people trying to buy their stuff. They've got early releases going on. It's mayhem in the city. What Privateer did, which was sort of smart, was when I waited in line for their stuff, a guy walked through the line and said, "Hey, welcome to the Privateer Press booth. Here is a sheet of all the limited different con exclusives. Check off what you want as you wait in line, and we'll show you what's sold out and how many are left." So you're waiting in line. You already know what's in trouble, and you can start picking what you want. You can see, these are the con. I won't miss anything. Then we actually got to the booth. There was another guy waiting there, and you handed him his paper, and he said, "Okay, so the things you want, they're over here, they're here, they're here, they're here, and they're here. And I will have this person run back and get that exclusive for you right now." So before you even get to the register, they've helped you get your purchases together, and then you go right through. It's just very engaging, very professionally run, and I thought they did a really fantastic job with that.
And the key was that was only at the really peak times of the day.
Yep.
That's the key. That was not all weekend. That was like maybe the first 2 hours on Thursday.
Yep.
And then maybe the first hour or so, maybe on Friday and Saturday. And the rest of the time, it was walk in, browse, do whatever you want to do.
Right.
That's kind of interesting because that, to me, that indicates that they thought about this a lot.
Yes.
Oh, and because there's going to be a whole bunch of things that you can do with the booth before you get to that point, right?
Right.
And that's just some really, really good planning and preparation on their part.
Well, what's even more brilliant about it, they're almost Disney-esque because as you go around the Privateer Press booth, because you're waiting in this line, right, that goes all the way around the booth, and as you're outside of the booth, all of a sudden you're walking along in this line, and to your left, inside the booth but facing in a window out, is one of their professional painters working on an unreleased model.
Right.
So, you get to see an unreleased model being painted by a professional, and he'll like answer questions. "Oh yeah. So this is the new, Rulic Gargantuan or Colossal, and I'm working on it right now. And yeah, this is the technique I use for non-metal metallic and blah blah." And you're like, "Wow, this is cool." So you get to see that. So it's sort of like you're kind of entertained as you go around the booth,
yeah.
And other booths, though, just have like kind of like the walls. You see this at PAX sometimes, too. It's the walls of paper when you just wait till you get in, and finally you can see the Holy Grail inside. So I think getting that engagement, it's like, oh, it's not so bad to wait in line. I get to see all these cool things is definitely helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So what about some other demos we had? Craig, did you have any other demos?
It's interesting, Russ, that you introduced this moment by saying two companies, Privateer Press and Fantasy Flight, did this thing.
Yeah.
And then you talked all about how Privateer Press did it great, and then you're moving on.
Well, I can talk about Fantasy Flight. Let's talk about Fantasy Flight more then. What would you like about Fantasy Flight?
Yeah, I would say Fantasy Flight did it very poorly, is
Okay.
what it in my mind. Until after the flight report, there was nothing to look at until you got inside. There was nothing to tell you what they had. So if you weren't a fanboy that already knew what was going on, you had no idea what they had available. And you were waiting in a line an hour or more to go inside and basically browse, which to me is ridiculous. And it was like that all weekend long.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't even go into the Fantasy Flight booth until late Saturday. And I did not buy any. This is the first Gen Con where I walked away without one of those giant, enormous Fantasy Flight bags.
Yeah, me too. I didn't buy anything this year either.
And I will admit that it was because I was peeved. I felt like I had like I was being forced to jump through hoops to even look at what they had. And by the time I got into the booth, I was like, I don't need to buy any of this right now. And I was like, yeah, forget you. So so I didn't buy anything. And it cost them at least $100, and I doubt I'm the only person who felt that way. And actually, I know at the Fantasy Flight, at the flight report, that it actually was addressed, and people complained at the flight report, and were told, yeah, we realize it's not working. We got to think of something new. But when you are one of the big guys at Gen Con and something's not working, you need to be able to adjust it on the fly.
Probably. And now, one thing, not to completely bash FFG, though, one thing they did do well, which I do like about them, is they do have that large open demo area right there on the vendor floor also.
Well, I love FFG.
And that was working great. No, I know. Yeah.
FFG.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, the people who decided that one element of the weekend and then stuck to their guns,
Yeah, right.
I think they made a mistake. That's all I'm saying.
So, okay, fair enough. But the new, but the demo areas there were pretty nice.
The demo areas are always great.
Yeah.
I mean, they're always packed. They've always got super excited people. I have never had a complaint about an FFG demo. I didn't do any, probably because I was, bitter, and that's on me. That it's coloring beyond, the shopping experience.
Nice. So there's a warning to you folks at your vendor hall there. If you make a negative experience in one spot, you may miss it in other spots too. So, Colen, did you have any positive experiences when your brief chances to walk around the vendor hall?
One thing that made that kind of made a big impression, possibly the biggest impression at the show, was walking by the Catalyst booth.
Oh yes,
where they had was it my imagination, or was that actually split into two different booths with an aisle between it? Catalyst
did some interesting things with their booth. They made it feel much larger than maybe it was by doing exactly that. They sort of split it into a way. They had their demos sort of like on the outside, kind of like FFG did, but then on the inside, the booth was sort of split into BattleTech and non-BattleTech areas.
Yeah, and then the big thing that I noticed, I'm a big Shadowrun fan.
Yeah.
I'm not so much a BattleTech one.
Yeah.
But the big thing that I noticed was that they had this enormous area set aside for demoing their new game, The Duke.
Yes.
Yep.
And in my case, that didn't help because I never had time to actually go and look at the demo going on. But it was still, that made me think, wow, if I have time on the last day, I should go by here and see that they're making a big deal of this. I should see what all the fuss is about and check it out.
I'm glad you brought the Duke up because they did a really clever thing with that, which was they made
Two very clever things.
Yes. Well, the first one was they made the oversized pieces. Craig, did you see that?
Yeah, no, they had the whole board up in giant size with giant size tiles, and you played the game, but you played it like giant chess.
And you know who else does that is Mayfair Games with Catan. They also have that giant Catan board, right? So there's definitely it definitely works to have oversized versions of your game.
Yes.
So I saw that, and I was going to mention it just a few minutes ago, but then I was just thinking, did I imagine that? Did I imagine the giant game board and the giant pieces there?
No, you did. That was real. Yes, it was. And the Duke actually is quite a good game. I own my own copy. My kids love it. It's a fantastic abstract two-player game. So you will not be disappointed if you pick that one up. But yeah, they did a great job demoing that, and Catalyst did a really good job, and they had a lot of action in their booth too. But because they were launching BattleTech Alpha Strike for the BattleTech fans, and as you mentioned, Colin, huge amounts of Shadowrun stuff going on there.
Yeah.
So they also had massive lines, but they managed them very well. Had cool bags. Another thing, cool bags. The bonus.
You know what else they did, and I didn't get a chance to do this because I didn't know what was going on, but our friend Dave from the Nerd Herders did it. Did you notice that big giant walled off area that just had a little door to get in?
No, I didn't see that.
It was like a tower. It was a round walled off area, like 10 feet tall. And I was constantly trying to look inside. I was like, oh, is that like maybe Sprawl Gangers is in there? And what it actually was on the inside of that round wall was a scene as if you're inside a bar.
Oh, yeah?
And they were really quick 30-minute role-playing sessions, and that was your environment.
Oh, cool.
And so
That's awesome.
So there was a game master, and he's like, okay, here you are. You're in this, it's called Dante's Circle, blah, blah, blah. And look around you because this is what you see. And you could talk to that guy, and he'll be able to tell you this. And you could talk to that guy. What do you want to do? And so they really kind of played through it. And it was a neat little all-encompassing moment. So you're basically role-playing just an instant, if you will.
That's a clever way to demo an RPG. That's a really interesting way to handle that.
Extremely. And then they gave a free book.
Nice.
Yeah, so like a little, it didn't have any rules. It was just like a fluff manual.
I think it was the Sixth World Almanac, right?
Yeah,
that's an awesome book. Shadowrun has kind of so much history that it's unless you've been keeping track of it very carefully, there's always gaps, and that book I found was really good for filling stuff in.
Yeah, that book is exactly what every game company should make to catch people up to speed who are jumping in like later on in the company or in the game's evolution. So I thought Catalyst did great all around, and I thought they also did a very good job because they had very pretty girls in historical costumes running the Duke. They weren't like classic booth babes. They were just really pretty girls in really cool costumes. And they were very excited and energetic, and they knew the game. And I thought it was just, that added a little
knowledgeable staff.
We'll put that under knowledgeable staff.
Knowledgeable staff.
Yeah.
Who are excited to be there. So great. Any other any positive examples from you, Craig? That was a great comment.
I would say when we went, we found Hawk War Games, of course, the makers of Drop Zone Commander.
Yeah, sure, right.
And they had brought over a bunch of staff from England, and that was very exciting. The game designer was there. We got to talk to him a lot. Anybody could have talked to him, but I got to talk to him a long time. And actually, a friend of his who's really good in engaging people was giving the demos, and I asked if the game designer could give a demo, and he was like, no, but I'll stand here while he gives a demo, and you'll kind of you'll get a little bit of both. And so that was very cool. And the way they demoed their game was up earlier in the session, or in this chapter, Russ, where you were talking about short game full rules versus short game reduced rules.
Right.
They gave a short game reduced rules.
Yeah.
A very limited mission, very quick in and out sort of mission that you could do, but at the same time you were kind of like, you saw the drop ships and the way they worked, you saw the tanks and the way they worked, and the infantry and the way they worked in a building, and it kind of highlighted some of the really cool elements of the game without getting bogged down in minutia. And I think that is an excellent way to demo a miniatures game, but they did it the right way also because you can't do that and just play it off like that's the game. Mm-hmm. Because people will then get the book and be like, wait a minute, this is there's 8 million more things going on and my head's about to explode. So as the guy was giving our demo, he was very energetic. You could tell he knew everything about the game. And he would say, okay, and now there's a few more steps in here in the full game. We're going to skip over those and jump right to the really cool bloody part. So you knew where there were pieces sort of edited out for length. But it was very exciting, very engaging. They had a really cool table all set up with brand new, our friends from Games and Gears are actually making 3D table surfaces, 1 foot square table surfaces for Drop Zone Commander. So urban street layouts, 3D plastic urban street layouts, and they had them there all painted up, and they just looked beautiful. And so it was really cool. So I would say that was one excellent demo that I did. Another excellent demo that I did was a game called Badass Zombie Killers.
I like the title.
Which was and we were playing with like two guys from the game company. Or I think it was the guy who designed the game and a friend of his, and it was a lot of fun. Basically, the whole game is that moment in a zombie movie where everybody's gearing themselves up in the sports section of the mall right before the zombies break in. And everybody's just trying to make the coolest weapon, and it's just ridiculous. It's like you've got weapons, and that includes like a golf club or a sawed-off shotgun, but then you have modifiers like twin-linked or laser-guided. So you could end up with a twin-linked, laser-guided golf club that's your mom's. And like each of those things is a positive or a negative, and it's just really cool, really fun, really light. And I left the demo intending to buy a copy when I found out that it was a $15 card game and said no thank you. But so that's a different thing.
Now I'm disappointed that I didn't get a chance to play Badass Zombie Killer.
I know.
I feel like I should have looked for that.
I think I missed the game of the con there, Craig.
Oh, I'm telling you that I had the most fun probably of the con wandering the outskirts of the hall. Like where the cheap seats are for.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I did the same thing. So this year I thought it'd be kind of fun to focus on exactly that. Instead of trying to find like the brand new game that I wasn't really expecting this year and get that, I was thinking, what are some of the games that maybe came out, old like last year or whatever, or maybe that I just have missed that are still good or from smaller folks. So I did the same thing. I went around and two games in particular from two guys did the same sort of demo I talked about earlier. There were small companies that were on the outskirts, and they both knew their audience. They recognized, they didn't know me from the show or anything, but I started talking to one of the guys, one of the designers from Legacy Gears of Time. And what attracted me to this booth was it's a game about time travel where each player goes back and changes the time stream. So he says, I'm going to invent, steam-powered manufacturing. But in order for me to do this, I need to first go back in time prior to that and invent fire, and then I also need to go back in time and invent gears. But if you, Craig, go back first and invent fire, then not only do you get victory points for creating fire, but you also get some of the points I would have gotten from my factory because now you also invented the fire my factory is using. So, but then I can go back and invent fire before you invented it, and then steal your thing. So it's like this really cool like time jumping thing, and the artwork was this really cool, cartoony, I just like steampunky sort of retro Flash Gordon sci-fi kind of thing that really attracted me to it. And so I started talking to him, and it's sort of he started talking and he knew his audience. He knew that I knew enough games to kind of know the basic jargon about, Euro versus American and worker placement, all that. And so he started going through it, and then he immediately knew where to go to talk about what makes his game unique. As he could tell I liked the artwork, so he started showing me some of his favorite drawings, and it just really appealed to me. And it didn't hurt. It was on Sunday, and he was like ready to make a deal because, they don't want to carry all these things home again. And so it turned out this, and he had a couple con exclusives, which again helped because I'm like, well, I could get it when it comes out at, my local gaming store. I could order, but he's got two cards I can't get at home. Plus, he's going to give me a $10 deal on it. So, okay, or whatever. So I'm like, okay, fine, I'll take, And then another, that was Legacy Gears of Time, which I think was funded last year by a Kickstarter. And this year they had an expansion out for it. And the other one I found, which also was really launched with the Kickstarter, was called Fallen City of Karez. Mm-hmm. And again, both these games did these they didn't really demo it, but when they showed me the game, they both did something similar. They kind of got to know me what I was looking for in learning about their game, talked to me about the specific mechanics I was interested in, but also had an open copy of a game in front of me showing me the cool components. So either they could read that I was a bling guy and I liked all the bits, or they just wanted to show them to me because your Legacy Gears of Time was showing me all the cards and also the boards and the artwork. And Fallen City of Karez is kind of like the deeper, more crunchy version of Lords of Waterdeep. So it's like you're building a city and getting engines and stuff, but it's much more deep. It's much not as light. So it's a much heavier game, which sometimes you want that, sometimes you don't. But looking at it, he had really cool components. He had he either knew the guy or had some of the meeple components that were the ones he bought for Waterdeep. He had him in his game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and stuff like that. Really good. I spoke to the designer. They were offering, like, hey, buy it at the con. I'll give you. He actually gave me like $25 off the game plus a dice cup. Who came to me dice cups, so that kind of thing. But really, it came down to him just knowing me, knowing what I was looking. Not me as Russ Wing, but me as just a gamer, and knowing what the kind of thing I wanted to hear about his game. Getting me excited about it. So I had a great time, both those things, and based on the con exclusives, I basically got both those games for the price of one. So I figured, well, if one of them's good, I didn't really lose out. But they both actually, having read through the rule books now and really had a chance to sit with them, haven't played them yet. Both of them look really a lot of fun, so I don't regret them at all. Yeah, I'm really excited to try them out.
Both of those were Kickstarter games also.
They were, yes. So, and they're Kickstarters that have now sort of launched, and now they still exist, and their creators are taking them to the con and trying to live the dream of actually, or nightmare, depending on how you look at it, of being a game publisher and designer and keeping their games alive and making expansions and making new products, which is cool.
Cool. I think a cool demo or a cool comment on demos, because it actually includes two different examples, would be Firefly.
Oh, yes.
And the way that that Gale Force 9 does their demos. First of all, the tables that they do their demos on should be copyrighted.
Yeah.
They basically lay out all the components that don't have to actually move during a game, recreate them on a massive glossy table cover, and then have that laminated over a table.
Right.
So that the board is there, your player mats are there, little reminders of the game flow and the options are there, and that is a crazy, ridiculous, awesome.
I want one of those. I would have bought one if they were selling those. I've been like, I'll take one, please.
And you drove, so you could have just shoved it.
I could have taken it home like it's Firefly. Give me the table.
That's right. Everybody that I saw at their booth doing demos, they were excited, they were energized, they were totally brown coats, they were getting all the jokes, they were sharing the jokes with people who maybe didn't get them. It was really just a high energy area, except for one time, and that's not their fault. Some doofus flew off the handle because there were no more copies of Firefly available that day, and was yelling at the people in the booth.
Oh dear.
I mean, really, like socially unacceptable levels of anger being thrown at these poor workers at the booth, and then the poor guy getting yelled at had to give a demo.
Oh dear!
And it was just like you could see he was sort of dejected and downtrodden, and I felt for the guy. I'm a stickler for correct behavior in public, and first of all, it's nobody's fault but yours whether or not you could have stopped it. Maybe you couldn't have gotten there early in the morning or whatever. But it's like you're no special guy that deserves them setting aside a game for you. They don't owe you a game. So for you to be angry, you can be angry, but don't be yelling at people.
Right.
But anyway, so that's neither here nor there. The demo was awesome. Now, what about our full game session that we paid for, Russ?
Well, that was. I was a little disappointed in that. So
was I.
So we as I mentioned earlier, we signed up for a 4. Now, Colen, have you ever done one of these? At Gen Con, did you ever sign up for a full game demo from a company?
I haven't. I didn't actually know that was a thing until right now.
Yeah, so at Gen Con, they have all kinds of events you can sign up for right in advance. And these are usually not in the vendor hall. So usually these are things outside the vendor hall, and it could be an RPG session.
Oh, so it's like open gaming, except you've got like
it's pre-arranged
moderator or something who knows what they're doing.
Exactly right. So like last year I got to play the Iron Kingdoms RPG with the designer, which was awesome. He was the GM and he ran it for us. It was fantastic for 2 hours. That was really cool. So there's things like that. So what you do is you sign up and you go to the Gen Con website and you pick an event. And so Gale Force 9 had announced that they had several slots each day for 2-hour sessions of the Firefly board game where you could come in and the sessions say whether you know it or not. So some of them might say, it's an Axis and Allies game and everybody there is expected to know the rules because it's, it's higher level, kind of thing. But these were intro games. So no one was there expected to know the rules because it was brand new. And there was going to be a person who did know the rules teaching the players who didn't know the rules how to play. So you're thinking you're going to get a nice solid 2 hours of the game. Maybe you don't finish it because you're learning, but you get a good chunk of the game in, right? Yep. So unfortunately, when we got there, all of us were on time. I think we're like 2 minutes late. We're all basically on time. We're all there. The person who was going to teach us the game was late. So she was like 5 minutes late. And then it was pretty clear after a couple minutes she didn't really know the rules. No. At all. She may have glossed through them once. She may have briefly watched the demo maybe, but she didn't really know the rules. and she was trying to teach us the rules. So it became
she didn't know everything she didn't know.
right. And the worst part, she didn't know what she didn't know. So we were clearly figuring out, just being gamers, that when she was telling us stuff, we were kind of like, I bet it doesn't really work that way. Like we were looking at each other in the eye going, and Nicole was playing with us too. So it was Craig, Nicole, and I, and one other person we didn't know, and who's also a very nice guy. And we're like, we don't really know. We know what she's telling us can't be right because it doesn't really work, and we know the game wouldn't be this silly. Plus, we just played the demo in the main hall. It didn't have this problem. So it's clearly she's confused. So, and then when she would leave, we'd kind of figure it out. But then when she would come back, she'd try to help us, quote unquote, and then give us wrong rules again. So it actually would not help.
Right.
And then after starting 15 minutes late and giving us not very helpful advice, she tells us that she's got to leave, but some other person there who's trying to help another table is also going to help us, which he really couldn't because he was trying to help his own table. Fair enough. And then she comes back 5 or 10 minutes before we're supposed to stop. She goes, we got to stop now, guys, because we got to get ready for the next group.
Right.
And I'm like, so you were 15 minutes late. You made us stop 10 minutes early. So basically, we lost 25 minutes out of our 2-hour session, and then you didn't really teach us the game.
And she would keep wandering, like, oh, Bob over there knows the rules. I'll be right back. And she would wander off to find out from Bob.
So it's definitely, and what makes it more painful is, I mean, I know that at a con it's crazy and you got a lot of people trying to run everything, but you're also paying $2 a ticket for the session. Not a lot of money, but still, it's $2. So it's kind of like, I that was kind of a disappointment. And so basically, if you're going to do that, have the session, you need to have people that are going to be. Exactly. I know that they had their A team was out doing the demos on the vendor floor, obviously, and their B team was running the tables. Unfortunately, you're paying money and taking 2 hours of your con session to be on the B team, so it kind of sucks. Right. So that was my. I'd already bought the game and I was already sold on the game, and it didn't affect my love of the game because I do really like it, but it did affect my. I would probably not pay for another session from Gale Force 9 at GenCon again because of that.
Yeah.
So that did affect that. So you definitely want to make sure that, especially if people are paying money for your event, you want to be able to show you're giving 110% and make sure it's going to be good feeling.
Yeah, because it's a great game, but it's not an easy, quick game.
Yeah.
And so it really needed someone who knew the rules and was excited and was energized, because you're not going to have non-fans of Firefly spending money and giving up 2 hours of their con,
right?
To do that. So that really, to me, you needed to have the guys there, and I don't know where they were, because every time I was looking because we know the designers and every time we looked for them at the booth, they were somewhere else, like running events. So, but they weren't where we were. So I guess maybe we just missed like the one session that they
may have been back. They may have been at lunch. All we know.
Yeah,
Who knows?
I mean, that's for all we know. But I don't know that it speaks to the entire all con long experience for that particular event. But that one that we did was disappointing.
Well, there you have it. So, Colin, do you have any other demo commentary you want to make from this year's Gen Con?
I don't think so. One of the things that, I don't know, we can maybe fix next year by bringing more staff is give the people in our booth, including me, more time to go and see other stuff on the show floor.
Yeah, for sure.
But I was unfortunately rather limited this year.
Yeah, no doubt. You guys were clearly, excited and also very busy demoing off the Realmworks like crazy, which was great. But it is a bummer to be sitting there surrounded by all the hotness and knowing you can't really escape your booth.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have, yes. But then maybe somebody else could solve this problem for us, and then we could do the fun stuff of the show. Right, exactly. Well, you just gotta rotate out, get a second staff, just another Kickstarter, to staff your booth, so you can go do the other stuff. The GenCon Kickstarter, you could kickstart it so that we can send more people to GenCon.
Right.
And, spend more time at the show.
All right, yeah, I'll take that %. All right, great. Well, Colin,
I want to. There's one other thing, because I feel like we just came down hard on Gale Force 9 and made them feel like the. It's
okay. I was a Fantasy Flight apologist. You can be a Gale Force 9 apologist.
No. I want to. I to be totally honest, I want to talk about Attack Wing.
Oh, okay. All right.
I want to talk about WizKids and an entire booth worth of demo tables fully manned, with it they wouldn't let you do a demo for the first 2 hours Gen Con was open. And I was standing there figuring, okay, and now they're going to do demos, and I had a guy come over to me and go, we're not going to do demos for another couple hours. So
WizKids did a couple things that I was very disappointed in. One of them was, I don't want to be the bashing session here, but we do reviews. We're controversial. We talk about these things.
Yeah.
So a couple things they did. They you're right. The demos I thought were poorly run.
Yeah.
Not full of energy.
People did. I tried 4 times over the con to do a demo, and every time I went there, I was lackadaisical out of the
Yeah, it wasn't even that they were full. It was just they didn't really feel like running it right now. Like the tables were empty, so I didn't really understand that. Then the second thing was they were exaggerating the sales.
Yeah.
Which I was disappointed to see. And you can't really fool people with this, guys. So like they're like, oh, we're almost out. We're going to run out for sure. And we got like 2 copies left, and then the guy goes back and brings out another box. When I said 2, I mean 2 more boxes.
Yeah.
And then you come back later, and they're bringing out another box, and so they're trying to pretend it's like short, even though it's literally shipping to stores. And by the time I got home, it was already in stock at my local game store. So don't. That's gonna work for you once, and then it's not. So don't lie or don't exaggerate your situation. And then the third thing was, which was really silly, they were cash only.
Right. Yeah.
Now, like even the smallest guy nowadays, okay, has the little tiny thing plugged into their iPhone and is taking credit cards.
Yeah.
And to be honest, the little tiny thing in your iPhone actually does a better job of taking credit cards than most credit card places now. Because you swipe it, it automatically goes to your email. It's all instant. It's great.
My credit card story for this year was that I met the first cab driver I've ever met who was happy to take a credit card.
Yes.
Because he had the little square.
The iPhone.
dongle,
Yes, exactly right.
Like, yeah, this is great. This cost me 3% as opposed to like the enormous machine in the car that cost him like 9%. He's like, sure, I'll take credit cards.
Oh yeah,
great, no problem.
There's no reason not to take credit cards nowadays. Okay, don't make me run to the stupid ATM and wait in line and get the cash and then walk around the con with a wad of cash in my pocket waiting to get stolen. That's just silly. Okay, that's just dumb. And the fact that every small company, and you're whiz kids, I know you're not giant, but you're certainly not tiny, and you can take credit cards. So that's just ridiculous. And their booth was very disappointing. I would think by now, WizKids has been on the comeback trail. They've got some great games right now. They've got some great products on the line. They've got some great licenses. There's really no excuse for them not to be a little more professional at a con.
No, the last 2 years, they've been great. I mean, I bought Quarriors off the demo.
Yeah. I don't know what happened this year. I don't know if they were just...
Demo of that last big Star Trek game that you bought. You loved.
I love that. That's my favorite Star Trek game still.
I had a blast at that demo. For some reason this year
they were off. I don't know what happened.
It felt off on, like you said, multiple levels, and I think that cost them a lot. Like Fantasy Flight. I think when you're at a con, I think success or less success, it can be a fine shave, and I think if you make a couple wrong calls, you can cost yourself a lot.
And I think the last word I'd like to leave about demos is that not only does the demo help sell your current game, but it helps sells future games.
Right.
Because if you look at the success of Firefly this year, which is probably one of the hottest selling games at GenCon, it sold off the shelf, and from a company who's only made 2 board games.
Right. Yep.
But because Spartacus was so well demoed, so well received, and so well sold last year, everybody was extremely confident that the same company would do an equally good job with a really, really, really beloved property like Firefly, and it out of the park. Now, I loved Federation Commander, Starship Commander, the last WizKids space game. So when I knew they're doing this Attack Wing, I was excited about it. But when I went to their booth and I had to have cash and I couldn't get a demo, I'm less excited. And you know what? Next year I will be going in with lower expectations from WizKids rather than higher expectations. So it's really important that you keep that professional appearance going on in your booth so that people know what kind of company you are and what to expect from you year after year.
It's momentum.
Right.
You want to keep them. You want to get the momentum started, and then you need to keep it going.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
All right, well, Colen, thank you so much again for joining us here on the Lost Chapters. We really appreciate it.
Dirty looks from the guy behind the counter.
The unadorned jelly. So, Colen, we can't wait to talk to you next week on the full episode. So thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to talking to you more then.
Great. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Thanks for purchasing a D6G Lost Chapter. Supporting the show helps it grow.
Last week, and the levels sounded like I was really low. So
you look good now, but remember last week you had problems with your microphone being plugged into the wrong jack, so that may have been it too.
I did not have problems with my microphone being plugged into the wrong jack.
Not that I'm recording this for the blooper reel, but I'm just saying your microphone was plugged into the wrong jack.
How do you know?
Because remember when I walked you through switching the jacks, and you said, "Oh yeah, look, it's working."
Yeah, it wasn't the Forget it.
It was obviously something totally unrelated that just
Right.
happened to be fixed
Completely
by that.
Clearly, it was not in any way operator
Fixed
error.
At the same time,
Yes.
I was fiddling with that wire.
Exactly. That's,
I don't appreciate this. Russ.
Understood. Don't worry, it won't be used in the blooper because we've got Randy's awesome song at the end, so don't worry about it.
Oh well.
Clear.
To change. Let me change a couple of these questions really quick.